Forgive us as your leadership. This is hard for us to get used to too as we come together. We are grateful for the blessings that we have. Just being in this space or being virtual, wherever we are, it means a lot, and it means so much to have our community together, not just for you, but for us. You really have been there for us the whole time, and we are so very appreciative. The talk I'm going to give is called Learning to Live in the Shadow of 9/11. 9/11, 20th anniversary on Saturday. In the year 2001, on a quiet, beautiful day in September in New York City, a young man by the name of Welles Crowther rose and prepared for his day. He got dressed, as he always did, in his crisp press suit, finishing by putting a white handkerchief in his shirt pocket and a red bandana in the pocket of his pants. One to show and one to blow is how his father Jeff had put it when he had first given them to Welles as a boy. Welles idolized his father, following him around at the Empire Hook and Ladder Company in Upper Nyack, New York, where Jeff served as a volunteer firefighter. He would do anything to be like him, already helping to clean fire trucks when he was just 7 years old. By the time Welles was in 9th grade, he was already a junior member of the company. As soon as he turned 18, Welles became a full-fledged firefighter. And wherever he went, Welles always had one of his trusted bandanas. They were under his fire helmet at the station, under his lacrosse helmet when he played lacrosse as a teen, and under his hockey helmet when he played for Boston College. They were a defining part of who he was, almost like a second skin. Now, as a 24-year-old, he was on top of the world, literally, working as an investment banker on the 104th floor out of 110 floors in the World Trade Center South Tower. When United Airline Flight 175 struck the tower, Welles knew right away something was wrong. The entire building shook, and everybody around in the office began to panic. Welles, however, remained calm, his firefighter instincts kicking in. First, like a good son, he called his mother and to let her know that he was okay. Then, plucking his trusted red bandana from his pocket and tying it around his face to keep out the smoke, he got to work. In the weeks following 9/11, at least 18 people reported being saved by a strong, authoritative young man who seemed to know exactly what he was doing. They called him their guardian angel. One woman who had been injured in the blast reported being carried by this mysterious man up several flights of stairs to safety. The only physical detail they were able to remember about this man is that he had a red bandana tied around his face. Welles Crowther himself never made it out alive. Even after people begged him to come down from the tower, he refused. Excavators found his remains among a group of firefighters in the South Tower stairwell. 20 years have passed since 9/11, and yet memories of that day linger as if they happened yesterday. In the space of a few hours, our faith in God and humanity was shaken to its core. Could we ever look at the world around us in the same way again? Would we ever feel safe? September 11, 2001 represents a liminal moment in the history of our country and our world. All of us old enough to remember vividly the sights and sounds of what should have been a quiet Tuesday and an otherwise forgettable week. Close your eyes and try to picture exactly where you were, who you were with, and what you were doing in the early morning hours of September 11th. How much of it still comes back to you? It's still pretty fresh, isn't it? For me, it was the sunshine, you can open your eyes, on my face as I prepared for the first day of classes in my second year of the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College. Like Cantor, who was, I think, in cantorial school. Where were you, Ed?
I was on my way in,
Yeah.
and I had to turn around, and I watched the first tower fall from my side view mirror out of the city. It was horrifying.
Cantor was sharing that she was on her way to classes, and she had to turn around watching live in person as the towers fell from New York City. It was around 8:30 in the morning, and I had just called my sister Mara in New York City for her 24th birthday. She told me I might want to check out CNN. An hour later, after watching the towers fall on the tiny television in my room, I tried to call her back. There was no answer. The rest of the day is somewhat of a blur. I remember heading to classes and being told everything had been canceled, watching hours and hours of TV coverage, and I remember crying. Nothing would ever be the same ever again. Recent events in Afghanistan with the U.S. withdrawal and takeover of the country by the Taliban underscore just how true that sentiment was. 3,000 years have passed since the stories we read about on Rosh Hashanah, and yet their memories linger as if the events they described happened yesterday. In the Torah readings for the Jewish New Year, we watch in horror as the two worst days of our patriarch Abraham's life unfold in front of us. First, with the banishment of Hagar and Ishmael, his maidservant and son, and second, with the even crueler tale of the binding of his other son, Isaac. These are not the moments in our tradition we hope to remember, but the ones we would choose to forget. So why replay them over and over again on what is supposed to be one of the happiest days of the entire year? Well, the rabbis give us no solution to this quandary. I offer two of my own. First, they are provocative, providing plenty of fodder for generations of rabbinic sermons. Rather than the traditional readings for Jewish holidays describing ancient sacrificial rites, these are narratives that make us think, questioning our very assumptions about our biblical ancestors, as well as our faith in the God they set off to follow. Secondly, by forcing us to think, they allow us to reevaluate. Even as awful as these two readings are, perhaps there are brighter moments that can provide hope and healing inside of them. Instead of looking at the cruelty of Sarah and the weakness of Abraham, perhaps we can find forgiveness and understanding for the painful circumstances of their lives. Instead of hearing only the cries of Hagar and Ishmael, lost and alone, preparing to die, we could hear their cries of joy when a water source was revealed to them by God. Instead of watching horrified as Abraham binds Isaac upon the altar and brings his knife down towards his son's neck, we can see the moment of reprieve when, opening his eyes, Abraham sees the ram caught in the thicket. In re-examining 9/11, I see both the ways humanity turned against one another and how we turn towards each other. The hearts of all Americans and the hearts of all our allies cried out in unison. There are 9/11 memorials all over the world, including right here in Buffalo, as well as in Jerusalem. At the same time as Americans turned on our Muslim compatriots, interfaith gatherings and support networks blossomed. Looking back should not narrow understanding of what happened, but expand it, seeing both the good, the bad, and the ugly, a complete picture of a particular moment in time. This is what the rabbis ask of us in their choice of Rosh Hashanah Torah readings, and what I ask of you as we collectively commemorate the events of 9/11 this coming Shabbat. For inspiration, I turn to the story of another 24-year-old, a bear of a man named Rick Riscorla. The year is 1965, and Rick, already a seasoned soldier, is about to be thrust into one of the bloodiest battles in Vietnam, the Battle of La Drang. Having been born in Cornwall, England, Rick had already done his tour of duty for the British Army. Now, as a newly minted American, he was ready to do the same for his adopted one. A bit eccentric, Rick had the habit of singing songs of his youth in the most stressful of moments. Folk songs like Going Up Camborne Hill, or Men of Cornwall, Stop Your Dreaming. As the battle raged on, Rick sang. He sang through the guns and the bombs and the smoke and the terror. And as one of the soldiers recounted, we were sitting in our holes with our knees knocking. We have dead guys all around us, and here comes Rick singing Cornish songs. For his efforts, Rick was awarded both the Silver Star and the Purple Heart, and was later played by none other than Mel Gibson in the movie We Were Soldiers. After the war, Rick went on to become the head of security for Morgan Stanley for their World Trade Center offices. This is where he was in 1993 when a truck bomb blew up in the basement of the building. And this is where he was now as a 62-year-old when two 747s struck the tower 8 years later. Never one to go down without a fight, the grizzled Army veteran immediately got to work, marching up and down the stairwells of the South Tower, likely passing a young Wellis Crowther along the way. He looked for people to save, all the while singing Cornish folk songs at the top of his lungs as if he were on a Sunday stroll through the park. All in all, through his efforts, and this is the most unbelievable part, Rick Rescorla is credited with saving 2,700 lives. 2,700 lives. Almost the exact number who perished in the World Trade Complex that day. The tragedy of 9/11 would have been all the more tragic without his efforts. Sadly, like Crowther, one of those lives was not his own. Wellis Crowther and Rick Rescorla died in the service of strangers they had likely never met and who had never met them. In doing so, these uncommonly brave men give us hope and inspiration that we too can face and hopefully overcome anything that comes our way in 5782. Over the years, Wellis Crowther's red bandana has become a symbol of the unsung heroes of 9/11. A 20-foot by 20-foot replica was made to be used at the debut of the movie about his life. The actual one he wore on that day is in the permanent collection of the 9/11 Museum. Today, I present you with your own red bandana to serve as a reminder not only of the tremendous loss that occurred on that most auspicious day, but also of the incredible capacity of the human heart to rise up and make our world just a little brighter than it otherwise would have been. When you leave today, take one per family. We only have about 200, but if you take one per family, that should work, and use it as a reminder, especially this coming Saturday, of the heroism of that day as well. To close, I found this anonymous quote written last year, meant to be read on Erev 9/11. On this day, 19 years ago, 246 people went to sleep in preparation for their morning flights. 2,606 people went to sleep in preparation for work in the morning. 343 firefighters went to sleep in preparation for their morning shift. 60 police officers went to sleep in preparation for the morning patrol. 8 paramedics went to sleep in preparation for their morning shift. None of them saw past 10 o'clock on September 11, 2001. In one single moment, life may never be the same. As you live and enjoy the breaths you take today and tonight, before you go to sleep in preparation for your life tomorrow, kiss the ones you love, snuggle a little tighter, and never take 1 second of your life for granted. May the memory of all those who lost their lives in 9/11 always be for a blessing, and may each and every one of us live a life of blessing in their honor and memory. Shana Tova.